Rebbe, just a reminder, next Wednesday is Yom Ha'atzmaut.
I just want to say this. I have to apologize. I know this is going to be a shiur based on Torah Sheba'al Peh. You don't have a text. And the reason for that is that David Spiegel tells me that the shul in Clanton Park does not have Tzur Mimirabanan, which is a bit of a shock to me. I think every shul should be supplied with Tzur Mimirabanan and probably multiple copies. It is probably the most comprehensive and yet presentable understanding of halacha. But I can't, I could send you a check and you could use my American dollar check to buy Tzur Mirabanan, and I would certainly be excited to make that contribution. So in the meantime, for today, we'll have to have a Torah Sheba'al Peh session. We're learning now the laws of eating milchiks after fleishiks. And this is based on a Gemara in Chulin on Daf Kuf Hey Amid Aleph. The Gemara establishes in the name of Rav Chizda that Ochal Basar, after he eats meat, Asur Lechol Gvina. Let's emphasize the language here. He is not permitted to eat cheese. And the language of Rav Chizda is very forceful and very forthcoming. He does not mince any words here. He doesn't say, well, it's a matter of custom, or, just swallow and then, after you chew down your meat, immediately, eat cheese. He doesn't say that. He says, Asur lechol gvina. The Gemara goes on to quote Mar Ukva, and this is very, very important. Anna laha milsa, he says that as far as this separation between meat and milk, my status is like that of chometz, of vinegar, compared to wine, to yayin. And what he means to say is that I don't size up to my father. My father, when he would eat meat, at this moment in time, he would then add 24 hours before he ate cheese, what we call me'es le'es. V'ilu anah, but Mar Ukva says about himself, Behasu dasa, in this particular Suda, lo achilna, I will not eat cheese, but l'suda achrita, in a different Suda, I will eat cheese. I'm not going to wait a full me'es le'es, a 24-hour period. Now, what we want to study today is the phrase misauda l'sauda, from one meal to the next. And we're going to ask the following question: what does that mean from one meal to the next? We're going to see no less than three views about this. There's going to be the Rif, and that's going to be agreed upon by not the Rif only, but also by the Rambam, the Rosh, and the Tur. And they all understand that Misud l'Sud is a shir of Zman. In other words, how much time goes by on a normal situation where you wait from one Su'uda to the next. That's going to be the first push in the direction of waiting between meat and milk. The Rosh calls it in Chulin, Bizmana haragil ha'adam lisod. Hainu, mizman su'udas haboker ad su'udas erev. What does this mean? In those days, they would eat 2 meals a day, not like our affluent, fat society, so to speak, where we eat 3 meals a day. So the first meal was called the Sudas Boker, and the second and last meal was called the Sudas Erev. And according to the Rosh, Misauda l'Sauda would mean the time that you were allowed to elapse between the morning meal and the evening meal. And less than that period of time, you would not be allowed, says the Rosh, to eat milchiks after fleishiks. However, the Rambam, although he too understands that Misuda l'Suda means a time period, but he doesn't say it's from the morning till the evening, but rather he says, Hu kish shos. It's like 6 hours. Not exactly 6 hours, but like 6 hours. And the Lechem Mishnah, the super commentary on the Rambam, says that what happens is that the Seudah of a Talmud Chacham is Bishah Shishis. What does that mean? They ate the morning meal, and then the evening meal was eaten basically 6 hours later. So that's what we have so far, the Rosh and the Rambam. The Rosh says from the time that you eat the morning meal, Sudas Boker, until you eat the evening meal, Sudas Erev, nothing in between. You are not allowed, according to the Rosh, to eat cheese anywhere between those two times. The Rambam writes Kishesh Shos. Now we move on to the Shita of Tosfos. Tosfos says Afilu lialter. He's allowed to eat cheese immediately after he eats meat, with one condition that has to be met: Silek hashulchan ubirech mut. He's got to close the meal and recite Birkas Hamazon. In those days, closing or ending the meal meant that you took the shulchan. They had these portable little tables that they ate on. Each person had his own table. As soon as he removes the shulchan, then he benches, and from that moment on, he's allowed to eat milchiks. And the reason for that is because it's misu'uda l'suda. He's already completed his suda of basar. He rounded it off with akiras hashulchan and birkas hamazon. Now he's ready for a new suda immediately. And not only is this the opinion of Tosfos, but it's also the opinion of the Bahag. However, the Bahag adds another condition. And he says that he needs what's called netilas yadayim. He's got to wash his hands. And he needs kinuach hapeh. He's got to rinse out his mouth. Once he does so, he's already removed the shulchan. He's already recited Birkas Hamazon. He's cleaned out his mouth and washed his hands. He can now eat milchiks. He doesn't have to wait any period of time from Seudah l'Suda, because it's from one Suda to the next. And Rabbeinu Tam agrees with the Bahag. And therefore, Rabbeinu Tam writes, Asur lechol gvino liachar basar hainu below netila v'kinuach. Aval b'netila v'kinuach shari. If he rinses out his mouth and washes his hands, he's allowed to eat gvina immediately. And that's Rabbeinu Tam and the Bahag, the Baal Halachos Gedolos. Now, I'm not going to tell you what page this is on because I don't think you have the pages.
Yes, you do.
You do have the pages?
Yeah,
So,
I sent out what you sent me.
great. We're on page 131, if the page numbers came out, which is the second of 5 pages that hopefully you got.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to apologize that it didn't come out clearly. I'm just going to implore you, and I'm hoping you're all listening. I don't know, I don't see you, but Bobby, are you there? Bobby's there. So listen, I'm going to ask you as a personal favor, if you can be in touch with I think on Bathurst there was a Sfarim store, although I think the owner of the store, I knew him, I think he passed on. But anyway, so if you can ask in the Sfarim store if they could possibly order Surma Mirabanon. It's a set of about 8 volumes. It's not very expensive. They give a special break for Canadians. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I don't mind chipping in for this because every shul on the face of the earth, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, or Yemenite, should have even Hungarians for them, should have a copy of Tzur Mirabanon. And he always quotes the Sephardic poskim, the Ashkenazic poskim, so you get a real flavor for the halacha. Now, Mar Ukva, if you recall, would wait 24 hours between meat and milk. And the question is, did he require netila and kinuach hapeh? Rabbeinu Tam says that the reason why Mar Ukva waited a full 24 hours before he would eat milchiks is because he did not have Kinuach hapeh, he did not have netilas yadayim. Or alternatively, says Rabbeinu Tam, he was machmer on himself. But we don't have to be nervous and anxious about Mar Ukva. We can go straight with the halacha of Rav Chizda, and that's fine. You'll tell me that his father waited 24 hours. That was a chumrah. Or alternatively, that's because he didn't have netilas yadayim and kinuach hapeh. Again, the laws of kinuach hapeh we'll get up to a little bit later. But this is what we have over here. So we have now two shitos about Suda L'Suda. One shita is it's the amount of time that usually passes by between one and the next Suda, which the Rambam identifies as Kishay shows. And the other shita is that no, it means end one Suda, begin a new Suda, and immediately you're allowed to partake of milchiks. But as we said before, Rabbeinu Tam and the Bahag add a condition. You've got to have both netilas yadayim and kinuach hapeh. Fine. Now, how do we paskin in Shulchan Aruch? This is on the bottom of page 131, the second page of the 5 pages. First of all, the Shulchan Aruch says that the word basar in this context refers to every category of meat. That means behema, chaya, and even oaf. Now that's a radical chiddush, because when you're talking about oaf, which is poultry, that's the Rabbanan. Even if you were to cook poultry with milk, the Mechaber and Shulchan Aruch paskins, that's only a violation of the Rabbanan. I'm not trying to be light-weighted, the Rabbanans. I'm not saying that, but the fact that after eating oaf, we have another harchaka. It's like one harchaka on top of the other. We have one harchaka in that we're not going to eat chicken with milk. And on top of that, we're not even going to eat chicken and then milk. We're going to have to go through the entire rigmarole of waiting misuda l'suda. And the Mechaber paskins at sheyisha sheish shos. And basically, the Mechaber is paskening straight away like the Rambam, although he doesn't add that chaf hadimyon, and it would seem that he requires 6 full hours. Each hour is made up of 60 minutes. Then he adds another condition. It's not enough that 6 hours passed, because there's something called basar bein hashinayim. Again, I'm just reviewing the basics, and I hope you'll forgive me for that. But you know what? Sometimes it's kedai to review the basics. What is basar bein hashinayim? There's a major machlokes as to what basar bein hashinayim is and what's its halachic status. We're going to assume right now that he has particles of meat that are trapped between his teeth. And even if he did not swallow the meat, he's got to get rid of those trapped pieces of meat. And that's called, in the language of the poskim, loes litinok. It was quite common, even to this day, that if you have a very young child, an infant, and you want to feed them something that's in a very solid state, you chew it up for them. You don't eat it, you don't swallow it, you chew up the meat, and then you give the meat to the child. That's called loes litinok. The Mechaber says that in that case, you have to wait because of basar bein hashinayim. And not only that, says the Mechaber, he's got to remove the basar bein hashinayim. Now, I personally, I don't know how you're going to remove basar bein hashinayim. You could try it with this kind of toothpick and that kind of toothpick and a toothbrush and a this and a that. I don't know if you could ever guarantee. I'm trying to remember my dentist's name from Clanton Park. What was his name? Hafner? No, not Hafner. Can somebody shake up my
Tater.
memory? What?
Tater. Tater.
Oh, Monty Tater. No.
Moshe Shields.
What? No, not Moshe Shields.
Hoffman. Lloyd Hoffman.
Hoffman is his name. Hoffman.
Lloyd Hoffman. All right.
Lloyd Hoffman. He extracted my wisdom teeth. And I got it in before December 31st, so I was covered by insurance. A day later, I would be in the poorhouse. But anyway, what do I want to tell you about his extracting my wisdom teeth? Since he extracted my wisdom teeth, I've got basar bein hashinayim coming out of my toes. It's just endless. In any event, no, because what happens is when you extract the wisdom teeth, the teeth move a little bit, and it makes a little opening there for the basar to go in. And I've tried every single toothpick in the world. Okay, so we got to get rid of basar bein hashinayim. The Ramah adds the following comment. 6 hours went by, and he still has basar bein hashinayim. He has to remove it. And he's got to rinse out his mouth before he eats milchiks. Do you hear this? So the Ramah is pointing out, and I don't think the Mechaber necessarily would disagree, that in addition to 6 hours, you need to remove basar bein hashinayim. How do you remove it? He says, ladiach peh. Okay? However, he quotes now another opinion. So this is all the Ramah. The ein tzrichim lahamtin sheishos. You don't have to wait 6 hours. Miyadim siluk. You remove the shulchan. Ubirech birkas hamazon. And he was mekaneach piv. Mekaneach yadav. Umeideach piv mutter. So that you see here that although the Mechaber is not aware or makes no note of the Shita of the Bahag and Rabbeinu Tam, that you just end the first Suda of Basar and then you could start the next Suda of Cholav, except that you need Kinuach HaPeh and Hadochas, Hadochas HaPeh Kinuach Yadayim. But the Ramah quotes it as a valid opinion, as a Yesh Omrim. So what's the bottom line according to the Ramah? V'minag pashut b'medinos elu, says the Ramah. Lahamtin achar basar shah achas. What we call the Dutch. Right? We think it's the Dutch minhag, but it's the minhag of the Ramah. Wait 1 hour. V'ochlim achar kakvina. And then he can eat milk. Umiut tzarich levarech birkas hamazon achar basar. The oz havi suda cheres. Umuto lechol. And then, according to this kula, you're allowed to eat. Ava below birkas hamazon. Lo mahani amton hasha. So waiting an hour is not enough without birkas hamazon. Now, what happens if after 6 hours or after 1 hour he finds basar bein hashinayim, tzarich lasiro, he's got to remove it. Now, the Ramah is a little bit uncomfortable about a person who wants to eat milchiks immediately after fleshik, so he benches. Yesh Omer, he says, Ein levarech birkas hamazon al menas lechol gvina. If your whole purpose is to eat cheese, that's not a justification for reciting birkas hamazon. Because what's going to happen at the end is you're going to recite birkas hamazon twice. Once on the fleshik meal, and the second time on the milchik meal. when you never intended to end one meal. You only ended a meal in order to allow yourself to eat the other gender, in this case, milchiks after fleishiks. Aval ein is harim bazeh. The Ramah says, I notice that people are not careful about this. And we'll see soon that this can be very relevant on Shavuos, which is what, in about 4 weeks' time, a little bit more maybe, when we eat cheese balinces. So when you can eat the cheese balinces? Well, you can have it for breakfast, but the only problem is that you want to have a sudas basar because ein simcha below basar. On the other hand, you want to be mekayim the heilige minhag of eating cheese balinces. I have friends who enjoy cheese balinces more than they enjoy a steak. I think they need some help. But in any event, cheese balinces are ganze Zach. So the question now is, if he's eating a meat meal, then he wants to eat milchiks, and we're holding like Rabbeinu Tam, or the minhag pashut of the Ramah, waiting an hour, and he's doing this whole thing only, right? And again, he has to bench, and he's doing this whole thing only to allow himself to eat milchiks. Okay, ain't this harim bazeh. That's it, period. He says we're not careful about it. He begrudgingly gives us the green light, the go-ahead to bench, only for the purpose of immediately beginning a milchika meal, or, according to his minhag, waiting an hour. V'yesh medagdikim lahamtin sheish shos achar achilas basar l'gvin. The Ramah then says that even though it's not our minhag, but there are those who I thought he meant was super duper, and they were machmer to wait 6 hours, like the mechaber. So the mechaber has no doubts about it. Straight away, 6 hours. The Ramah paskins that the minhag in our medinas is to wait 1 hour. Plus birkas hamazon and kinuach and hadoch. But now the Ramah quotes the Yesh Machmirim that want to wait 6 hours. At the end, he says, "V'chein nachal lasos." The Ramah endorses this other view that you have to wait 6 hours in order to eat milchiks, even though he himself testifies that the minhag in his medinos is to wait 1 hour. Very strange Ramah. To first formulate the minhag in medinos, and then to say, nachon, what's preferable is to do something entirely different. So if you would ask me, what did the Ramah himself do? My guess is he probably waited 6 hours. Even though the minhag in his makom, as the Ramah himself testifies, was to wait only 1 hour. And the Shach amplifies this. And this you'll see on page 132. V'chein nachon lasos kein kosa marshal. Dechein roy lasos l'chol mi sheyesh lo reach Torah. Anyone who has a shmek of Torah should be waiting 6 hours. And again, Rabosa, you wonder what is going on here. The Torah says you're not allowed to cook meat and milk together. You're not allowed to eat meat and milk that were cooked together. If you eat meat and milk that were not cooked together, there's no violation of a Torah law. Even if you would put them in your mouth simultaneously, meat and cheese, you did not violate any Torah law whatsoever. The Rabbanan were afraid that if we'll allow you to eat meat and milk together, you might come to cook meat and milk together. That's Gzera number one. Now, on top of that, you're telling me I can't eat meat and milk together. I can't even eat them at the same Suda. All right, so there's someone who says you have to wait 6 hours. But what about the minhag that says you just set up another Suda? And on top of that, we were machmer to add a full hour. And you did kinuach and adocha, you said birkas hamazon. No, you don't have a reach Torah. Do you hear what he's saying? heavy accusation. But those who have the minhag, the Dutch will wait an hour, the Germans will wait 3 hours, whatever your minhag is, go ahead with your minhag. That's the shach.
Now, my minhag is to have fish for lunch on Shabbos so I can have ice cream in the afternoon and I don't have to worry about the clock.
That's a great idea, Bruce. That's fascinating. The question is, are you eating Ben and Jerry's?
Not unless it's an all Hebrew container.
Correct.
I'm
I'm
boycotting
the Palestinian uprising. But you should know that the Taz is so excited about the Shach here, advocating waiting 6 hours, that he says, Roy Limchos. If you see someone who doesn't wait 6 hours, you should make a macha, a public protest, the ligar by him, and to give them a shpachtel, as we say in Hebrew. Says the Chasam Sofer, for a chole, don't get all excited. Let him wait 1 hour after meat and eat milchiks. This is the Heilige Chasam Sofer. Where's my favorite Hungarian here? Bob, do you hear what the Chasam Sofer is saying? He's telling you that if there's a chole, wait 1 hour. And I would add another footnote here. Oh, I don't know if I got to tell you, my daughter had a daughter this past Shabbos. She's with us now. Maybe we'll get a chance to meet the little girl. I'll introduce you to her. And I was thinking, thank you. I was thinking of telling my daughter that she's a Oledes. She has a status of a chola, and therefore she should be able to eat milchiks. Let her wait an hour after fleishiks. And that's the Chasam Sofer. I would not be in bad company with the Chasam Sofer. And he writes, Ole lirfu aso ein sarech lahamtin achar achilas basar ein sarah. He doesn't even advocate being a machmir. Ein sarah. Yoser mishah achas. And then he should make sure to recite Birkas Hamazon. And the poskim all add that he should do kinuach and hadoch.
The truth is that the Pella is why the others are so machmir on it.
I don't know anyone who disagrees with the Chasam Sofer, but the fact that the Shach and Taz are really coming down hard against someone who waits an hour when it's a gzera onto a gzera onto a gzera.
That's what I mean. Like, in other words, the Pella is on the others. Like, the people who are machmir for the, it's really a far-fetched situation. I mean, their lashon, I would argue, is just being mizarez us because it's a gzera.
Right.
But it's anyway, it's a question.
Right. Now, here's an interesting question that we want to address. A man ate fleishiks, and it slipped his mind, and inadvertently he made a bracha on milchiks. He has now two choices. He can decide not to eat the milchiks, because he didn't wait the 6 hours or the 1 hour. And then his bracha becomes a bracha of atola. Or, in this set of circumstances, we should advocate that he should go ahead and eat milchiks because he already made the bracha.
Well, could he switch to something that's not milchiks? Because
there's nothing out. There's nothing there. Just milchiks. That's all he has.
Because instead of a piece of bread with butter, he has a piece of bread without the butter.
Yeah, but there's nothing else available. So you'll see on the bottom of page 132 Going on to the top of page 133, a tshuva from Rav Ovadia Yosef on this very question. And after summarizing the machlokas between the Machaber, who requires 6 hours, and the Ramah, who mentions the minhag of Ashkenaz to wait 1 hour with Birkas Hamazon, etc., etc., he says, "Anachnu kibalnu," we accepted the final view of the Machaber. Utzrichim lishos sheishos bein basa v'chol. So it seems like for Sephardic Jews, there's no question they have to wait a full 6 hours. Mikol makom litzorach choli ktsas. Someone who has a headache, I mean, he's a little bit of a chole. Poshut sheyesh lahatir lechol machole cholav shah achas akrasudas basa. He says, I have no compunctions or reservations. Let him wait an hour, and that's fine. Now, what do we do in the case where he's not a chola, but he made the bracha on milchiks? Now, the Rambam Shita is that a bracha of Atola comes under the Isur of Lotisa Shem Hashem Elokecha L'Shav. So a bracha of Atola, according to the Rambam, is an Isur Doraisa. Says Rav Ovadia, Yesh lahadif litom kolshu mimachole cholav. I would recommend, advocate that he take a little bit of cholav kedei shalotia berchasa levatola. And truth be told, I think intuitively we have to agree with him. We saw that we're dealing with one gzera on top of another gzera on top of another gzera. And now you're going to violate the Isur Bracha of Atola, which is an Isur Doraisa of Lotisa Shem Hashem L'Shav. And now we're up to page 133. Now, you may see number 20, which is the Menuchas Ava. But I'd like to share with you the opinion of one of the Machmirim. I don't know, Bobby, how you successfully cloned yourself. Oh. That might be murder if you kill one of the clones. I don't know. You have to. Anyway, so the Machmirim here understood that once we accepted the minhag to wait 6 hours or to wait 1 hour, then before that time period, he's eating a davar asur. Gvina, within the 6 hours, is a davar asur. And you want to tell me that he should taste from the milchiks? Well, that's making his bracha into a valid bracha. You can't make a bracha on a davar asur. The bracha is a bracha levatola no matter what you do, even if you eat some cheese. That's the opinion of the Machmir. Do you follow this? Because once you've accepted the minhag not to eat cheese, again, I'm going to add a few words there, it becomes like a neder, and it's a chefetz d'isura, and therefore the bracha cannot be chal on a chefetz d'isura. That's how far we're going over here. Again, halach l'maisa, I think yesh al mi lismach. We can rely on Rav Ovadia. So keep this in mind. Next time you forget that you ate meat and you made a bracha and you're about to eat milchiks, and all of a sudden, boom, you realize, hey, I made a bracha and I can't eat the milchiks. Misha achal basar v'soch sheish shol shachach ubirach al gvina o chala v'nizkar kodem shetam asolo litom klumeh. Okay, so this is the dissenting opinion that objects to Rav Ovadia Yosef. And some poskim want to make the following compromise. If he remembers within the first hour, then he should not be eating milchiks. But if an hour already passed and his minhag is to wait an additional 5 hours, then he should take a taste of the cheese. So it means that the gvina, up until 1 hour of waiting, is a chefetz d'isura. But after the 1 hour, from 1 to 6, that's already an isa gavra, we'll call it. It's a minhag on the person, but not on the chalav itself. The chalav itself is not a chefetz d'isura. So that means that if you want to know how long of a time period gvina is really asur, the answer is 1 hour. And that was the minhag that the Ramah codifies here as the minhag of the Medinos. You want to wait 6 hours? Okay, but it's not that the gvina is a chefetz d'isura past that first hour. The first hour, that's mikra adin. That is an absolute minimum requirement to wait at least an hour. And that's called hamtonas sha'achas. You have a minhag to wait 6 hours, that's already something different. And we accepted that minhag and we're machmir, but if there's a pressing need to eat the milchiks, like for example, we don't want to be over a bracha batola, then since the first hour went by, we'll be making. And we have the German minhag of waiting for 3 hours, and that's based on Rabbeinu Yerucham, who says, "V'chein noag mar ukva mipnei she'abasar v'shuman nidbak bepez man or." Rabbeinu Yerucham comes up with a whole new thesis as to why we wait from basar to chalav to eat milk. It's not the way we understood it because the fleishix is caught between your teeth, but rather because the basar is males shuman. We would say that the taste of meat is still felt in the mouth even after he finished eating meat, because meat is very not greasy, what's the word I want to use? Oily, and it leaves a taste in your mouth. That's why the Gemara says that ein maftir nach Pesach afikomen, which means that the last thing we eat on the Seder night is the meat of the Korban Pesach, and the tam remains in his mouth for a long period of time. Fine. So we have 3 minhagim. Basically, you have 1 hour, 3 hours, and 6 hours. And now we move on to page 134, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the last page that I think you received.
Or are we going to talk about the
into the fifth and that whole,
I hope we'll get to that. I can't promise you because it's like 10 pages in, and we're only on page 5. So I also have an appointment that I have to run to. But let me just see, before I continue here on page 134, which is the last page you have, if I can introduce you to the little girl. Let me just see. Hila? Can we introduce the baby to my student? All right, you'll tell me if I have another. These my guys from Dallas.
Oh, very nice. They probably remember.
Maybe. All right, the baby's being changed now, so we'll see. So he says the following. It's quite common that we wait 3 hours. Gimel Shos. V'yesh al ma lismo. Okay, I don't hang around that much in those circles, but maybe you're familiar with people who wait 3 hours. I definitely could come up with a few. And he says they have what to rely on, even though, again, it's not 1 hour and it's not 6 hours. It's sort of like nishtaher, nishtahin, but nevertheless, yesh lahem al mi lismo. He says the following. Im haya b'choref, if it's during the winter months, az haya kfar zman sudach rita. They used to go to sleep very early during the winter, and they would wake up early the next morning. But the amount of time that elapsed between the morning meal, the Sudas Boker, and the evening meal during the winter months was a very short period of time. Because the night ended, they went to sleep when the night was young still. So the idea of waiting 3 hours is really rooted in what went on, Misuda Lasuda, the amount of time they waited from the morning to the evening in the winter months. But he says, Afilu bekayitz. This is what we call a low plug. Once we establish that during the winter months, the period of time between one suda to the other is 3 hours, then even on the kayitz, when it gets dark much, much later on, we're still going to maintain the same din. We wait 3 hours. And he gives a very beautiful explanation for this kind of a low plug. He says the following. What are you worried about? You're worried about the fact that within the digestive system, the meat is fatty, very heavy, and it takes hours and hours until the meat is digested and it's no longer male shtuman bipiv. Well, if in the winter we established that misuda l'suda is 3 hours, because that's how long you had to wait from one suda to next, it means that after the 3 hours of digestion, the meat is no longer mala shuma b'piv. So what difference does it make whether it's summer or winter? Beautiful analysis. Keva dagamar nasnu shir misuda l'suda imkein toli bizman suda. And if the Zman HaSuda during the winter months is 3 hours wait, then that's when the meat stops impacting. And he says, Kol sheyesh lo reach tori yamtin sheishos hafilu aboim imkomo shekilu yatzmon. What happens about a person who relocates? He's a German Jew, comes to New York, or he's a Dutch Jew and he settles in Canada. You have any Dutch over there in? I don't remember meeting any Dutch. I met some people who know Afrikaans because they come from South Africa, but I don't remember.
Yeah, the South Africans are Litvaks, not Dutch.
Yeah, what's
No,
his name?
Leo
Leo,
Davis.
yeah, Leo Shields. Leo
He's Dutch.
is Dutch, right? Yeah.
Also, Elzas, isn't Elzas also?
Yeah, Elvis also, yeah.
I'm curious to know how long Leo waits between meat and milk. Anybody know?
No clue.
No? Well, you get me an
Sure.
immediate answer because it's got to be immediate because he wrote a book on immediacy, on alacrity, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He did.
Okay. So what happens now? The minhag is to wait between meat and milk 6 hours. And we saw the language of the Shach, Kol Sheyesh Lo Reach Torah. But what happens if I come from Holland? We only wait 1 hour. And now I settle in an area where they wait 6 hours.
Or Rabbi, in Israel, we have mixed marriages like that. So it's not even a question of going from one country to another. It's
Right.
You have within one family, you have husbands and
Right.
wives with different
Right. So
time
generally
frames.
speaking, we go after the minhag of the husband, but listen carefully to this chiddush that I want to share with you. He comes from a place where they're makil, they're lenient, and they only wait 1 hour or 3 hours. But he finds himself in an area where they wait 6 hours. Should he take upon himself that chumrah now and wait 6 hours? And the poskim are a little bit concerned about that. Why? Because al titosh Torah simech. So I want to introduce you guys to Dvorah Rivka. This is our little Dvorah Rivka. Oh, wow. She is, can you see her?
I know her. Both of.
She's 5 days old.
Wow.
Born last Shabbos. Named after my shviga. So you can imagine how
Beautiful.
excited Charlie is,
Mazel tov.
that someone is named after her mother who just passed away just a few months ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cycle of life, it keeps going on and on. And no one waits for us. The train keeps going. So al titos Torah simecha. Do you hear this, Rabbosai? If I didn't see it with my own eyes, and this is a tshuva from the Mishnah Halachos, very common sefer, and he's writing that al titos mitorah simecha. You're Dutch. Your minhag is to wait 3 hours, or 1 hour, I should say. And he says the following. That since Rov Makomos, all the Sephardic countries and even most of the Ashkenazic countries have the minhag of waiting 6 hours, therefore there's no problem of al titosh mitorah simecha, because al titosh mitorah simecha would apply if he takes upon himself a chumra yisera. And I think that there's an implicit message here that should be researched very carefully. A lot of the chevra, and I was in this category myself many years ago, come back from Eretz Yisrael with new chumras. Have anyone here experienced that? Lav dafka Eretz Yisrael. You send your son to Lakewood Yeshiva or whatever yeshiva, and they come back with chumras. And they think, wow, it's great. I picked up a new chumrah. Not so pashut, my friends. You want to wait 6 hours? Well, if that's not the minhag of your family, then you're violating al titosh mitorah simecha. Unless it's a minhag which is berov haposkim uberov hamakomos, and then it's not called a chumra yisera. But if it remains a chumra yisera, then you've got to deal with the problem of al titosh mitorah simecha. And I feel very strongly that this has to be researched.
So again, I'm just trying to clarify. So
Yeah, please.
which one's the chumrah here? the 6 hours is the chumrah, and therefore you're saying you should not take it on because that
Yeah, he comes from Holland
yeah,
and he ends up in Lita, let's say.
which
And in
holds
Lita,
6
they
hours.
wait 6 hours. So he says, you know what? I'll allow you to take on the chumrah of Lita and wait 6 hours, even though I shouldn't really allow you to do so because Al Titosh Mitorah Simech, you're breaking away with this. And the answer is because to accept a chumrah Yisera, that's a violation of Al Titosh. But if the psak is berov hamakomos, uberov haposkim, then it's not called a chumrah Yisera. So my son comes back from learning Ich weiß was where, and he says, no, we can't have milchiks on this side of the shayish with this, and this and milchiks on the other because there's only one sink in between, blah, 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 blah. So I say to him, my son, that's a very nice chumrah that you picked up while you were in yeshiva. But the Torah says, Al titosh mi Torah simecha. If he comes back to me and he says, but Dad, this is the minhag in Rov HaMakomos of Rov HaPoskim, all right, it's not a Chumrah Yisera, we'll let him get away with it. I found that very, very fascinating. Now, one of the Ashkenazic poskim says, Ad sheyisha sheishos o chamesh. 6 or 5 hours. And then he adds kashir shebein suda l'suda. So what that means is that if for whatever reason you have to eat another suuda and only 5 hours have passed, then according to the Shita, this is the Shita of the Meiri, you're fine. All you have to do is wait 5 hours. And I was told the following story. It's not here in the Tzur Rabbanan. That in Rav Gusman's yeshiva, which is called Netzach Yisrael, the chef and the kitchen staff had to get home on a regular basis earlier, such that they would serve dinner, which was fleishiks, 5 hours after a milchika lunch. Or alternatively, they would serve lunch 5 hours after a milchika breakfast.
Don't you mean the other way? Don't you mean 5 hours, the fleishik supper, 5 hours after the milchik supper, 5 hours after the fleishik lunch?
Right. I don't know what I said, but that's what I meant to say.
Yep.
Rav Gusman allowed it. He said that if that's the way our yeshiva operates, then for us, in our small community, that's called Misuda L'Suda. That's what I wanted to share with you. Now, did anyone pick up on the Rambam? I think, Bobby, you were asking that question before. And maybe it's kir sheishos, it's less than sheishos. He says, Yesh mekilim lechol cholav achar basar li'achar shecholfa rov hashoah hashishis. Most of the 6 hour. And then he quotes Rav Yosef Shalom El Yoshiv. I don't think you have this, it's already on the next page. Mi'ikar adin daibam tonos chamesh shosu mashu. Just a mashu into the 6th hour. V'chein yesh lahakel kishemisarchim etzel krovim chashuvim. He is a guest in someone's house. V'im lo yiskabdu b'machol alavi sheichinu b'torach v'yamol rav alulim lehi olev. Your hosts will be insulted after putting a lot of work into preparing something milchiks for you, and you're a guest, and now you're going to tell them I can't eat the milchiks. They're not happy about that. So he says you can be makil into the 6th hour, over 5 hours. Are there any Sephardic poskim who would allow you to wait less than a full 6 hours? Rabbi Ovadia Yosef writes that b'shas hadchak, if need be, yesh lahakil lahamtin ad rov shah shishit. So it's 5 and 31 minutes. 5 hours, 31 minutes. Shas hadchak. Because again, the Mechaber was very strong about requiring a full 6 hours. Okay, then, so this is where we're going to stop and see if it's possible for you to order the Tzumim Rabbana, because David pointed out he can't get it online. So I didn't realize that. I thought you got it through Otzar Chochmah.
No, I did. It's just that Otzar Chochmah hasn't incorporated all the other volumes yet.
Right. They didn't get up to Yoredei yet.
Nope, not yet.
Okay. But it is out there. I'm sure it's out there. And we'll see if we can get it. Okay, then?
Mazel tov, Rav.
Okay, now next week, in these parts, I don't know, in your parts, they have a holiday. Not Canada Day, but Israel Day.
Oh, it's a biggie.
And
no one will be in condition for a shiur.
Yeah, because you'll be drinking too much or what? I mean, it's not Simchas Torah or Purim. But in any event,